Hey, fight fans, happy Sunday morning and happy Mother's Day. Had to make a quick video to discuss this monumental victory for Dmitry Bivol over Canelo Alvarez. Dominant win. For those of you who checked the channel yesterday, you know I predicted Canelo to win by decision. I had zero faith that Bivol would get a fair shake on the judges' scorecard. That nearly happened. Bivol won unanimously 115, 113. That in itself is very questionable, borderline criminal. And the fact that the fight was that close, meaning that if Bivol had lost, let's say, the last round of 12, which he won on all the scorecards, the fight would have been a draw. It was ridiculous. Here's a look at the scorecards right here. I'm throwing them up. You'll see the first four rounds on every judge's scorecard was awarded to Canelo. Big problem. I mean, that means out the gate, the judges were rallying to give Canelo a big lead. The best you can do in those first four rounds, being that Canelo wasn't landing pretty much anything clean, might be 2 rounds for Canelo or split them 2-2. But no way did he win the first four rounds. And it almost seems like halfway through the fight, the judges realized it's probably not a good idea for our brand, for Matchroom or Canelo, to give him a dodgy decision like this. And it's like everybody reversed course at once and started scoring it correctly, but it still gave Bivol a narrow win. At best, if you're looking to give Canelo rounds, I think you can do 116, 112, 8 rounds to four, but probably the best score is going to be 117, 111. Um, Completely dominant performance. When you look at the punch stats, I said yesterday that Bivol would be the best defensive fighter that Canelo's faced since Erislandy Lara. And that proved to be true. Canelo landed in single digits in 10 out of the 12 rounds. How many times did that happen for Bivol, single digit connects? Only once, I believe, in the 12th round. Every other round, he was landing in single digits and outpacing Canelo. The surprising thing is, and the reason why I was a little bit shaky on picking Bivol was that I thought he was going to be too jab reliant, and I felt that you couldn't beat Canelo using that strategy based on what we've seen happen to Golovkin. But that wasn't the case here. Bivol, on average, only landed about 4 jabs per round. So really, he was controlling Canelo with power punches. He landed 106 out of his 292 thrown power punches. That's for a good 36% connect percentage, very solid. As far as the jabs go, he threw 418 jabs, only landed 46. That's 11%. But he just completely outpaced any of the work Canelo was doing. Canelo landed about 74 of his 226 power shots, which is good for 22%. That's higher than most opponents land on Bivol. Bivol's average opponent connect percentage with power punches is only 22%, which is best among active fighters tracked by CompuBox, but still not good enough to get it done against a champion. One thing you also noticed from round one, Bivol just towered over him as far as height and as far as dimension, just a bigger fighter. And that translated into how they took the punches. When Bivol landed cleanly, Canelo had to give ground. Had to give ground, was going to the ropes, looked labored. Even the punches that weren't landing clean were moving him, as opposed to Bivol, he looked like a tank in there. He looked like almost like a bigger version of Winky Wright. Canelo couldn't penetrate anywhere. Tried to loop the punches around the head, couldn't connect. Tried to go to the body, couldn't get around the elbows, couldn't get to the sides of the body, kidney shots, nothing. Because nothing was there for them. He was completely frustrated and completely shut down. Just a masterful performance overall. So now the question is, where does Canelo go from here? Number one, 175 pounds wasn't for him. I think some people were fooled by the Kovalev win. Obviously, Kovalev was at the end of his rope at the time, but still knocking out a bigger fighter in your first foray into that weight class, was impressive, especially a former champion that was dominant like Kovalev was. But Bivol is the fighter that is in his prime, even at 31 years old, has very little wear and tear, and had a nightmare style for Canelo to deal with. Also, don't fancy his chances against the winner of Better Biev and Joe Smith. Most of us are picking Better Biev to win that fight. But the punch disparity, it would have been too much for Canelo at 5'8" to be trying to go in there with these killers. So he jumped the bridge too far. 168 is where he needs to be, where he's the undisputed champion. There's talk about a rematch. I don't see Matchroom risking that, despite all the what Canelo was saying and what Eddie Hearn was saying. they've invested a lot of money into Canelo with this three-fight deal. Over $50 million paid to him, number one as a fighter, and then you're hoping to recoup that with the gate and all the other things around the fight and pay-per-views. But as we've seen, if you look at pictures of people who were in the arena last night, and I almost decided to go, but decided not to at the last minute, just didn't feel the energy around the event and didn't want to make that trip cross country, for something that I didn't think was going to be worthwhile overall with the card. But as you can see, the crowd wasn't there. That's an issue. A lot of empty seats. So there's a good indicator that they probably didn't make the money back at the gate. And being that this fight was so one-sided, is there a lot of fan anticipation for a potential rematch in September? Do you want to take a risk like that with such a high output that you have to give to the marquee fighter, being Canelo? The safer bet would be to go straight into the Gennady Golovkin trilogy, which should have happened long ago already. This is why you don't mess around with money fights, because you got a situation like this. So now Canelo's not going to be coming in hot. He's going to be coming in off the back of losing a bad decision. Well, not bad as in Bivol's performance, but bad as in he just didn't have anything for this guy. So he's not going to be coming in hot, even though Golovkin won his last fight. That was the overseas fight in Japan. So you're already kind of back against the wall as far as how the numbers are going to look. I do think their names are big enough where it's going to sell regardless, even though at this past expiration date, as far as them taking so long to make this fight. But I do think that it's the safest bet. Canelo's still going to hold the advantage. He's still younger. Still won't wear and tear on Golovkin. He is 40 years old, and it's still going to be at a weight class that Canelo's comfortable in and that Gennady's never fought at. So that's the best bet. The best bet to get Canelo back on track and a style that he's familiar with. They're both very familiar with each other. They've made two great fights before. So the idea that it's going to be any different this time around is low. Also, another thing that gives a little intrigue is that being that Canelo's looked so bad at 175, he will be going right back down in weight to 168. Now, are there going to be any ramifications for going back down in weight so quickly, especially facing still one of the biggest punchers in boxing in Golovkin? We don't know. But I think that's the best bet to go, as far as financial wise for Matchroom and just getting their guy back on track. Is making the Golovkin rematch and just forget about trying to fight Bivol again. So where does that leave Bivol? I'm actually a bit concerned about him because if you remember, we had a similar situation like this years ago. Eric Morales, he won a close, very thrilling fight against Manny Pacquiao. His very next fight, which was supposed to be kind of a tune-up, was against a slickster named Zahir Rahim out of Philly. What happened in that fight? Rahim made Morales look silly, completely neutralized him, and won a decision. So what did they do at the time? I believe now Morales was with Top Rank. They acted like Zahir didn't exist after that. There was no talk of a rematch, and Morales went straight into the Pacquiao rematch, which was another great fight that Pacquiao won by knockout. It kind of began Pacquiao's great run, pretty much to the end of his career. I'm wondering if Bivol is going to get the same Zahir Rahim treatment. So more than likely, he's not going to get a Canelo rematch. So there's no rematch. He's going to want to unify, and then it's going to be all eyes on the winner of Beterbiev and Joe Smith next month at the Hulu Theater at Madison Square Garden. So here's the question: if Beterbiev wins, I don't think there's going to be a big issue in making that unification match. But if Joe Smith wins, I'm a bit curious. Based on the way their first fight went, is Top Rank going to be in a hurry to put them back in together? Because outside of that one moment in the 10th round, Smith really couldn't do much with Bivol, and I don't think much has changed, 3 years later. But we'll see. But I like Bivol's chances against any of the champions. He's younger. He's proving he can take a punch, and he's proving he can adjust. The most impressive thing to me with this Canelo win is that really he didn't have to get out of first gear. The other question I had is like mentally, once the pressure comes on late, how is he going to respond? Is he going to have to go in the shell? He didn't have to go in the shell because he took everything Canelo threw and he just cruised. He basically had his regular offense that he's been using on lesser fighters his last couple fights. He fought Canelo the same way. Canelo had nothing for him where he had to adjust any. So overall dominant win. Luckily, we didn't have the judges snatch this away from Bivol, but there's still something that needs to be done. 115, 113 is inexcusable. Nearly had this man's night ruined if he had one more round given to Canelo. And he already had one round too many. So I want to wrap this up. Happy Mother's Day to everybody, all the mothers out there. Make sure you love on your parents, love on your mother if she's still around. I want to hear your thoughts. Do you agree? Do you think Canelo needs to take the rematch, or do you think he just needs to stay away from 175 and go straight back to 168 for that Golovkin match? Or maybe skip Golovkin and fight John Ryder first and build up and build up some more anticipation and then have the Golovkin rematch. Who knows? Maybe Golovkin is going to be funny now and give Canelo the treatment he's been giving him the last couple of years and say, hey, I'm not interested in the Canelo match anymore, which I doubt. I'm looking at Canelo Golovkin the same way we're looking at Marquez Pacquiao. It's almost the same type of obsession between the two. But anyway, I'm wrapping this video up. Let me know your thoughts and talk to you guys soon.